Okay, welcome back, everyone. So we just did a couple of younger kids' books, including 4 short stories with Bluey, and then we did, we're going to say infant toddler Berenstain Bears, and then we did a regular Berenstain Bears old school book. So I'm going to switch back over to the Bailey School Kids. But I had to laugh because while I was putting up my things on my YouTube page and doing my editing, one of my coworkers had sent a video and it popped right up. Recently in the city, we have had torrential downpours, and it has created a lot of problems. Not just for the DPW, for the electric company, for the gas company, because it saturates the ground. Even right on down to some areas to our cable, our fiber optic connections, because they run underground now, not so much above. Unfortunately, though, in this day, in our city, we had a particularly bad sewer break, and it showed the video of it. And, you can ask your coworkers how bad it was, and they give you a general description. But you may not completely understand until you are sitting looking at it. And you can hear the supervisor in the background saying, well, just pump it out, to which 3 random guys are standing around going, but to where? But it was definitely an interesting thing. So, if perhaps you should come across that, because I will not put the city's name out there, not comfortable with that. But if you should know who this individual is, or you do know the video I am speaking of, it is rather eye-opening, I think is a word that I'm going to use, because most people just don't truly understand the depths of what is actually under our streets, and it's definitely interesting is one way to put it. So without further ado, we are going to jump back into the Bailey School books now. I do have to hit pause quickly because there's people running in and out, and somebody does need to get into the shower behind me, and I don't think they want to be recorded, so we're going to hit pause just for 1 minute, and then I'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. I took a second to eat a quick snack, too. I don't really want to spoil my dinner, because we don't have takeout, or we call it takeaway sometimes, delivered to the house, so I wanted to make sure that I was really hungry, so I just had some pretzels and some peanut butter, which you can still see on. I do so good at cleaning up after myself. So, without further ado, we're going to go right into Martians Don't Take Temperatures. So, Chapter 1, Windstorm. We're going to be blown away, Howie warned Liza, Melanie, and Eddie. The 4 friends had just met under a giant oak tree when a gust of wind whipped through the branches. School doesn't start for 10 minutes, Eddie griped. We can't just let a little breeze chase us inside. Liza shivered and zipped up her jacket. This is no breeze, it's a storm. A windstorm, Howie added, and it's getting stronger. Shush, Melanie said with her fingers to her lips. Do you hear that? Liza nodded. It sounds like someone is whistling. Eddie laughed. That's the wind whistling through your empty skull. When Melanie reached out to give Eddie a shove, the wind tore her scarf loose. Howie grabbed for it, but the wind snapped the scarf away. I'll get it, Eddie said, as he reached for it into a huge cloud of red dust. It began to swirl around the playground, pushing him into a dizzying circle. Grab my hand, Howie screamed, with the dust blowing all around him. Howie clung to the tree with one hand and reached for Eddie with the other. Eddie caught Howie's hand just as another gust of wind sent all 4 friends tumbling to the ground. Melanie and Howie covered their eyes, and Eddie buried his face in his coat. Liza sneezed so hard her cap popped off her head and blew away. As suddenly as it began, the wind died down to a whisper, and then it was gone. The sidewalk was covered with red dust, and a fine layer of red coated the bare branches of the oak tree. There was even red dust on the tip of their noses. Achoo! Liza sneezed, and then she sneezed again. We'd better get inside, Howie said, before Liza sneezes her head off. Cool, Eddie giggled. I wonder if her head would bounce. Liza tried to stick her tongue out at Eddie, but she sneezed instead. Melanie grabbed Liza's elbow and led her towards the building. They almost bumped into a short, plump woman at the school doors. The woman was feeling around the edge of the door while whistling a strange tune to herself. She bent over and ran her chubby fingers along the bottom of the door. Finally, she took a step backwards. Open, the stranger said in a stern voice. Howie looked at Melanie, and Melanie looked at Liza. Liza just sneezed. Eddie started giggling so hard he shook the dust off of his nose. Melanie pushed him aside, hoping the stranger didn't notice him laughing. "Welcome to Bailey School," Melanie said, pulling open the door. The stranger stared at the door handle and laughed. "Well, I'll be turtled." Then she disappeared inside. Chapter 2. Achoo. "You look terrible," Melanie told Liza when they were inside the building. The strange woman had scurried away down a side hall. "So what else is new?" Eddie snickered. Melanie gave Eddie a dirty look. "I mean, she looks sick." Liza sneezed again and rubbed her eyes. I don't feel very well," she admitted. "Maybe you should go to the nurse's office and lie down," Howie suggested. Liza nodded, and the 4 kids headed down the main hall. Melanie had her arm around Liza. "Oh no," Melanie said, stopping suddenly. "I forgot. Nurse Smedley retired. There is no school nurse." "Achoo," Liza sneezed and looked as if she was ready to cry. Howie shrugged his shoulders. "At least she can rest." The 4 kids went into the principal's office. The nurse's office was a little room inside the main office. "Good morning. If it isn't my favorite Bailey School students," Principal Davis waved to them from his big desk. "Good morning," Melanie, Howie, Eddie said together. "Achoo," Liza sneezed. Melanie patted Liza on the back. There was a bad dust storm out on the playground, and now Liza feels terrible. Principal Davis rubbed his bald head and looked at Liza. "Yes," he said, "she does look a little green around the gills." "She's not a fish," Eddie sputtered. "That's just a saying," Howie explained. "It means she looks sick." Right, Principal Davis nodded. "I think we should see if she has a fever. Why don't you come inside the nurse's office?" The 4 friends followed Principal Davis and watched him pull a big glass thermometer pop one into Liza's mouth. He stood before her and tapped his foot. "Aren't you supposed to time her?" Melanie suggested. "Oh," Principal Davis said, his bald head turning red. You are quite right. I think I'm supposed to hold your hand, too." Principal Davis held Liza's hand, looked at the clock, and tapped his foot. Liza sneezed and held the thermometer in with 2 fingers. "Oh, no. Is she done yet?" Eddie asked. "Let's take a look at it." Principal Davis pulled the thermometer out of Liza's mouth and looked at it. "I can't tell anything about these things," Principal Davis confessed. "Perhaps I can take a look, sir," Howie said softly. Howie wanted to be a doctor and liked to practice whenever he could. Howie held the thermometer up to the light and squinted. "I think it says 32.4 degrees. "That means she's dead," Eddie said. The 4 kids jumped at a voice behind them. "She's either dead or from outer space." Let's see what happens. Chapter 3. Zot. Standing in the doorway was the same plump woman they had seen at the school door. She was hardly as tall as Eddie. Her eyelids were smothered with green eyeshadow, and she wore a light green pantsuit under a heavy green winter coat. Even her skin was gray. Hair had a slight greenish tint to it as well. No, the lady said. "You're doing it all wrong. Let me see that." She took the thermometer from Howie and shook her head. "No wonder you're having such trouble. Why, this thing is ancient." The lady dropped a huge silver suitcase on the floor and started rummaging through it. She held up a green mask and tied it over her mouth. She whistled her strange tune and looked into her suitcase again. Here we go. The lady held up a big white instrument and stuck it in Liza's ears. Those are called tympanic thermometers, and they are awesome unless somebody is very sick. I normally just try to go with the regular, but if somebody's been vomiting or anything like that, it's easier. It means they're not going to get sick again, and you're not going to spread bugs and cooties. Principal Davis put his hands on the strange lady's arm. "Excuse me," he said. "It's kind of you to help, but who are you and what are you poking in her ear?" "Maybe she's sucking out Liza's brains," Melanie giggled. "She can't," Eddie explained. "Liza doesn't have any brains." Liza started to stick her tongue out at Eddie, but she sneezed instead. "Achoo! Achoo!" "I'm the new school nurse. Nurse Readings," the lady told them, handing Principal Davis some papers. "And from the looks of things, I got here just in the nick of time." The dust storm really bothered Liza, Howie explained. "I can't imagine that," Nurse Readings said. "I love dust. It reminds me of home." "You must be from the desert," Howie said. "Or for under my bed," Eddie laughed. "There's plenty of dust there." I certainly don't live under your bed, Nurse Readings said. I suppose my home would look like a desert to you, only it is much colder. The thermometer in Liza's ears beeped, and Nurse Readings held it up. Oh, zots. 99 degrees. This girl is burning with fever. Achoo, Lisa sneezed again. Let's get you something for that sneeze. Nurse Readings held up a bright green bandage and stuck it on Liza's forehead. They're cooling patches. Those are awesome, too. Liza smiled. When I was a little kid, bandages always made me feel better, she said. I guess they still do. As a matter of fact, I feel great. Sounds like we have a fantastic new nurse, Principal Davis said. You kids better get to class before the bell rings. Liza, Howie, Melanie, and Eddie took off down the hall towards their classroom. Liza skipped beside her friends. Nurse Readings is great. She's a little strange, if you ask me, Eddie said. She looks positively green, Melanie squealed. Eddie giggled. Maybe she forgot to take a bath this year. Liza stopped skipping and put her hands on her hips. Don't say bad stuff about Nurse Readings. She's the best nurse in the universe. Getting a little close there. Don't get mad, Howie patted Liza's shoulder. You have to admit, she is a little different. There's nothing wrong with being different, Liza said, and stomped off to their classroom. Eddie looked at his friend. What's got her feathers all ruffled? Melanie shrugged her shoulders. I don't know. Maybe Nurse Readings really did suck out her brains. Eddie and Melanie laughed, but Howie whispered silently to himself, maybe she did. Question mark, question mark, question mark? Alright, I'm going to stop here. But you guys let me know. What do you think happens in this one? That is definitely a bizarre. Now all of a sudden we feel great. What was in that cold compress, man? But we'll meet you right back here later on. More books. You guys have a great day. Bye.